Welcome back with another episode on tryhackme.com. This is Zahin Nazir and we are doing Active Directory Basics, which is part of the Windows and AD fundamentals. So it will take 30 minutes to complete. It is very easy. I already started my attack box and AD Basics v1.2. I don't know if we need attack box here or not, but just in case I started it as well. This room will introduce the basic concept and functionality provided by Active Directory. Okay, so we have from task 1 to task 9, and hopefully by the end of this video we'll be able to complete this room. Awesome. Let's continue with the task 1 introduction. Microsoft Active Directory is the backbone of the corporate world. That's very true if you are using Windows. It simplifies the management of devices and users within a corporate environment. In this room, we will take a deep dive into the essentials component of the Active Directory. Now, Active Directory is being used in combination with Azure Active Directory because a lot of stuff is moved to the cloud, and a lot of the services like Exchange and all these things are also moved to the cloud side, and people prefer to not have Exchange on premises because of the the ongoing costs and the storage that they need to make it available. Okay, so that's why Active Directory is now being used in combination with Azure Active Directory, and now the Azure Active Directory name is changed to Entra ID or Entra ID. All right, let's continue. Room objectives. In this room, we will learn about Active Directory and will become familiar with the following topics: what Active Directory is, what our Active Directory domain is, what components go into an Active Directory domain, forests and domain trust, and much more. Alright. Room prerequisite. General familiarity with Windows. Check the Windows Fundamental module. We already covered this one. I will put the Windows Fundamental Part 1 video link up here. Information on this: answer the following question, click and continue learning. We do that. Okay, Windows domains. Picture yourself administrating a small business network with only 5 computers and 5 employees. In such a tiny network, we will probably be able to configure each computer separately without a problem. You will manually log into each system, create users for whomever will use them, and make specific configurations for each employee's account. If a user's computer stops working, we will probably go to their place and fix the computer on site. While this sounds like a very relaxed lifestyle, let's suppose your business suddenly grows and now has 157 computers and 320 different users located across 4 different offices. Would you still be able to manage each computer as a separate entity, manually configuring policies for each of the users across the network, and provide on-site support for everyone? The answer is most likely no. My answer is always no, man. To overcome these limitations, we can use a Windows domain. Simply put, a Windows domain is a group of users and computers under the administration of a given business. The main idea is behind a domain is to centralize the administration of common components of a Windows computer network in a single repository called Active Directory, AD. So usually we don't call Active Directory. Usually, in the professional work, we call it always AD. AD team, AD. We need to set up AD. Okay, Active Directory we seldomly call. Okay, the server that runs the Active Directory services is known as domain controller. Yeah, domain controller is the main component. For example, in penetration testing, if you compromise the domain controller, that means you can compromise the whole domain on all of the connected servers itself. Okay, so domain controller is the main vector on which we do a lot of attacks. Alright, so here we have tryhackme.com domain. We purchase this domain, or we are using it offline. Obviously we will have some if you're using for example, if we need to publish something on our application server to the public user, then we also need to have a certificate as well. Okay, so that means we need to have a certificate, we need to have a domain registered from any of the service provider like GoDaddy, Microsoft, or whatnot. Now Microsoft also provide you a domain on their Azure portal. All right, so once we have the tryhackme.com, it is there. Then we create the domain controller. Then we connect the database server, desktop, workstation, file server with it, and give it a specific name or whatnot. And then we apply the permissions for each of these services. Okay, we gave them a role or something like that. Okay. The main advantage of having configured Windows domain or centralized identity management, all users across the network can be configured from Active Directory with minimal or minimum effort. Managing security policies. We can configure security policies directly from Active Directory and apply them to users and computers across the network as needed. So for example, only user 1 can access this workstation, so we can configure it on the domain controller that only user 1 can log into this workstation. Or for example, there is a group of users for which will give the support, then they can log into any of the system, but they cannot do more than that. All right, if they need to do something, they will ask the user who is already logged in to follow the steps. Okay, so these kind of policies we can implement centrally on the domain controller where our AD exists. A real world example. If this sounds a bit confusing, chances are that you have already interacted with a Windows domain at some point in your school, university, or work. In school, university networks, you will often be provided with a username and a password that you can use on any of the computers available on campus or in labs. Your credentials are valid for all machines because of whenever you input them on a machine, it will forward the authentication process back to the Active Directory where your credential will be checked. Thanks to Active Directory, your credentials don't need to exist in each machine and are available throughout the network. Active Directory is also the component that allows your school, your university to restrict you from accessing the control panel on your school, university machines. Policies will usually be deployed throughout the network so that you don't have administrative privileges over those computers unless you log in locally using an administrator account. All right, welcome to THM Inc. All right, during this task we will assume the role of a new IT admin at THM Inc. As our first task, we have been asked to review the current domain thm.local and do some additional configuration. You will have administrative credentials over a pre-configured domain controller to do the task. Be sure to click the start machine button below now, as you will use the same machine for all tasks. This should open a machine in your browser. We have done so already. Should you prefer to connect it to via RDP, you can use the following credentials. So if you're gonna use the RDP, you can do it from the attack box because you need to be in the same network. You cannot do it from your actual PC because you are not in the network unless you are connected with the VPN. Right? When you connect to via RDB, use the THM administrator as a username to specify you want to log in using the user administrator on the THM domain. Since we will be connecting to the target machine via RDP, this is also a good time to start the attack box unless you are using your own machine. All right. In a Windows domain, credentials are stored in a centralized repository called Active Directory. Active Directory. Let me know, guys, what is the competitor of Active Directory? All right, let's see. The server in charge of running the Active Directory services is called domain controller. All right, awesome. So we already have our attack box. Okay, Active Directory, let's see. If they ask us to remotely desktop it, then we will do it. Otherwise, we'll not do it. So this background is changed because of the Advent 2024 is coming. It should be there on the top of the screen. I don't know why it is not coming. So we will be covering all of this in the next month, starting December 1st. TOS 3 Active Directory. The core of any Windows domain in the Active Directory domain service is ADDS. So we call it Active Directory Domain Services, domain service ADDS. This service acts as a catalog that holds the information of all the objects that exist on your network. Amongst the many objects supported by AD. All right. We have users, groups, machines, printers, shares, and many others. Let's look at some of them. Sure. We have users, we have machines, we have security groups. What else? We have a lot of other things. Okay. Let's continue with the users. Users are one of the most common object type in the Active Directory. Users are one of the objects known as security principals, meaning that they can be authenticated by the domain and can be assigned privileges over resources like files or printers. You can say that a security principal is an object that can act upon resources in the network. Users can be used to represent two types of entities, people or services. People. Users will generally represent persons in your organization that need to access the network, like employees, services. You can also define users to be used by services like IIS, MS SQL. Every single service requires a user to run, but services users are different from the regular user, as they will only have the privileges needed to run their specific service. So usually this service, we call it service account. The service account of Active Directory, which you will configure in the Active Directory, will not have privileges to have interactive desktop. All right, it just, for example, if you try to log into a computer using the service account, you will not be able to do that because you should not have these privileges, right? Because you only need to run IIS software or Microsoft SQL Server or all other programs in the background, right? So the people will have the access or privileges to log into the system and interact with the GUI, the desktop itself. So these are the best practices that I'm explaining. It may or may not exist in your environment, depending on the specific use case. Machines are another type of object within the Active Directory. For every computer that joins the Active Directory domain, a machine object will be created. Machines are also considered security principals and are assigned an account just as any regular user. This account has somewhat limited rights within the domain itself. The machine accounts themselves are local administrators on the assigned computer. They are generally not supposed to be accessed by anyone except the computer itself, but as with any other account, if you have the password, you can use it to log in. Note, machine account passwords are automatically rotated out and are generally comprised of 120 random character. Wow. Identifying machine accounts is relatively easy. They follow a specific naming convention. The machine account name is the computer's name followed by a $sign. For example, a machine named DC01 will have a machine account called DC01 and then the dollar and then dot. All right. Moving on to the security groups. If you are familiar with Windows, you probably know that you can define user groups to assign access rights to files or other resources to entire groups instead of single user. That is very true. This allows for better manageability as you can add users to any existing group and they will automatically inherit all of the group's privileges. Security groups are also considered security principals and therefore can have privileges over resources on the network. Groups can have both users and machines as members. If needed, groups can include other groups as well. Wow. Several groups are created by default in domain that can be used to grant specific privileges to users. As an example, here are some of the most important groups in a domain. Security groups and description. Domain admins, server operators, backup operator, account operators, domain user, domain computer, and domain controllers. Domain admins. Users of this group have admin privileges over the entire domain. By default, they can administer any computer on the domain, including the DCs. Server operators. Users in this group can administer domain controllers. They cannot change any administrative group memberships. Backup operators. Users in this group are allowed to access any file, ignoring their permissions. They are used to perform backups of data on computers. Account operators. Users in this group can create or modify other accounts in this domain. Domain users includes all existing user accounts in the domain. Domain computers includes all existing computers in the domain. Domain controllers includes all existing DCs on the domain. Okay. You can obtain the complete list of default security groups from here. Let's see what we have here. This was the best defender or whatnot, BitLocker, I think. And now let's see. Universal, global, domain, local security groups. Here we go. Activate security groups. We have a lot of them. Well, ISI users. Remote desktop. Okay, wait. We can check it even here as well. It is still live or I'm disconnected. Okay. If we go to, for example, computer management. This one we covered it already in Windows fundamentals. So if we go to the where is the not this one. Wait a moment. Maybe it is under system or something. Accounts. Not here. Here we have administrative accounts, Active Directory. Okay, Active Directory users and computers. This is the Active Directory itself. I was looking for something where we can just see the users itself. Component services. It should be in the computer management. I don't know why it is not there. Here's Windows logs. We have services now, not this one. Just a moment, guys. System configuration. Let's check this one. Does it have tools to all of it? Computer management, system properties. It should be in the under the computer management where all other components are there. But since it is the Active Directory, so the Active Directory users and everything is there. So here you can see this is the THM, our domain itself. We have IT department, management, marketing, research, and sales. We have all the users under here. And then we have computers which are attached to it. We have built-in something. We have domain controllers, which is AD basics and type of GC. And we don't have a managed services or foreign security principles here. And these are the safe queries. All right, awesome. Active Directory users and computers. Okay, to configure users groups or machines in the Active Directory, you need to log in into the domain controller, run as Active Directory users and computers from the start menu. We already did so. This will open up a window where you can see the hierarchy of users, computers, and groups that exist in the domain. These objects are organized in the organizational units, OUs. So we call each of these department as OU, which are container objects that allow you to classify users and machines. OUs are mainly used to define sets of users with similar policies requirements. The people in the sales department of your organization are likely to have a different set of policies applied than the people in the IT. For example, keep in mind that a user can only be part of a single OU at a time. That is correct. Checking our machine, we can see that there is already an OU called THM. Yes, and this is our domain. THM is pre-configured. What if we try to change the domain name? So the domain name is thm.local. This is OU. I refer it to the domain. So domain, you can see it from here. Okay, not here. This is OU. Which are container objects? We already did so. Called THM with 4 child OUs for IT management, marketing, and sales departments. It is very typical to see the OUs mimic the business structure, as it allows for efficiently deploying baseline policies that apply to entire departments. Remember that while this would be the expected model, most of the time you can define OUs arbitrarily. Feel free to right click the THM OU and create a new OU under it called students, just for the fun of it. Let's do that. Students. So we have students as well. Awesome. If you open any OU, you can see the users that contain and perform simple tasks like creating, deleting, or modifying them as needed. You can also reset passwords if needed. Pretty useful for the help desk. So which OU we select? Okay, select. Let's go with the IT. You can reset the password. You probably noticed already that there are other default containers part of the THM OU. These containers are created by Windows automatically and contains the following: built-in computers, domain controllers, users, managed services account. Built-in contains default groups available to any Windows host. Computers, any machine joining the network will be put here by default. You can move them if needed. Domain controllers, default OU that contains the DC in your network. Users, default users and groups that apply to a domain-wide context. Managed service account hold accounts used by services in your Windows domain. So we already covered this one. The services account, and there is a managed services account where password is managed on your behalf, I think. This is also called I don't remember the name exactly, but it is like a globally managed service account, GMSA accounts, which is not there right now, but maybe I'm pronouncing it right, or this is not the real world. Check it out, guys, online, and let me know in the comments below if you find something like that. Security groups versus OUs. You are probably wondering why we have both groups and OUs while both are used to classify users and computers. Their purposes are entirely different. OUs are handy for applying policies to users and computers, which include specific configuration that pertain to a set of users depending on their particular role in the enterprise. Remember, a user can only be a member of a single OU at a time, as it would not make sense to try to apply two different sets of policies to a single user. Security groups, on the other hand, are used to grant permissions over resources. For example, you will use groups if you want to allow some users to access a shared folder or network printer. A user can be a part of many groups, which is needed to grant access to multiple resources. That is very true, and this is how it should be. Which group normally administrates all computers and resources in the domain? Which group? Domain admins. I think, no, it's correct. What would be the name of the machine account associated with the machine name Tom PC? Tom PC. What would be the name of the machine account associated with the? Okay. So it is Tom-PC and then the $sign, right? Awesome. Suppose our company creates a new deployment for quality assurance. What type of containers should we use to group all quality insurance users so that the policies can be applied consistently to them? Suppose our company creates a new department for quality assurance. What type of containers should we use to group all quality assurance users so that the policies can be applied consistently to them? We can what type of container? Just a moment. So these are the security groups and these are the machines security principles. I'm not sure which type of container we need to, but wait a moment. New. We can use organizational unit, right? So this is the container type. Let's go with the organizational unit. I hope this is the right answer. Organizational unit. Awesome. So this is correct. So guys, that is it for today. Once we come back, we're gonna start where we just stopped. So once we come back, hopefully we will be covering the task from task 4 to task 9. If not, I will divide this whole room into the 3-part series. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me on this journey. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Help us build the community. If you have any comments, please mention in the comment section below, and I promise I will get back to you promptly. Thank you guys, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.